Hey garden nerds, I'm Christy Wilhelmi. It's fall and it's time to plant garlic and shallots if you live in warm winter climates. I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but first I have an announcement to make. I'm really excited because my new book that is coming out in March of 2021 is called Grow Your Own Mini Fruit Garden. And if you have read Gardening for Geeks, or you've liked the information that I share here on these videos or on gardenerd.com, then you'll like the information that I'm going to share in Grow Your Own Mini Fruit Garden. It's basically the fruit companion to Gardening for Geeks, which you may already be familiar with. So, that said, it doesn't come out until March 2021. However, it just became available for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all of the other places, including independent bookstores, for you to pre-order today. So get your copy ahead of time and get ready to grow some really great fruit in spring. All right, now let's talk about growing garlic and shallots. If you live in a cold winter climate, you can plant garlic now, but you may want to hang on to shallots and put those in the ground in spring. But in warm winter climates, you can plant both right now. And right now is any time during October or November, before the ground freezes over. You want to get them in the ground, and then they will lie dormant over winter if you do have a frost and a cold winter, and then they will spring up in spring. But in warm winter climates, you put them in the ground, and they start growing right away, and you will harvest them. Usually the timeline is plant in October or November, and then harvest around late March, early April. I have another video for how to braid your own garlic that you grow, so check that out. It happens to be one of our most popular videos, and we'll give you some information on how to get all of this started. First up, let's talk about garlic. Garlic is available as either soft neck or hard neck varieties. Typically, but not always, hard neck varieties are grown in northern climates and soft neck varieties are grown in southern climates. This is one of my favorite garlic varieties. It's called Kettle River Giant, and it is a soft neck garlic, and it grows big and has some purple markings on it, and it's really beautiful, and I love growing it. There are other typical types of garlic like California Early, Enchilium Red, various things like that. And hardneck varieties, you'll find things like Music and Spanish Roja. Let's get down to brass tacks. For garlic, you're going to peel apart the bulb and break off individual cloves. You want to leave the cloves in their papery sheath, and note there's usually a flat pad on the bottom and a pointy tip on the top. This means the pointy tip is the top and the flat pad is the bottom. That's the root end. You want the root end down, but good news, if you screw it up and you plant them right upside down, they will right themselves before they come up. Ideally, to plant garlic or shallots, you would order disease-free seed garlic or seed shallots online or buy from your favorite nursery. The reason being that they're grown from each other, and so like potatoes, disease can transfer from one to the other pretty easily. That said, you can grow varieties that you've picked up from the grocery store. It's not a big deal. The only thing is, many times these guys are sprayed with a hormone to retard sprouting, which is what you want them to do. So check with your vendor to see if they've sprayed them with a hormone, and just know that it may take longer for them to germinate if you do. The other thing that's good to know is that when choosing your bulbs to plant, there is a difference between garlic and shallots. For garlic, you want to plant only the biggest cloves. As you get toward the center of the bulb, the cloves get smaller and smaller. Save those for cooking. Just take the bigger ones on the outside and plant those. So get more than you think you're going to need. For shallots, it's actually the opposite. You want to plant the smallest bulbs that you can. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but there are several bulbs in here. There are several cloves within this bulb, and you're going to separate those out. With shallots, it can be a little trickier than with garlic, and you try not to pull the skin down like I just did. Oops. But it's possible. So you can use a thumbnail and pull them apart. And if there's any of this sooty mold, black mold in here, just wipe that off before planting. And the rule is the same. Pointy side up, flat pad on the bottom for both garlic and shallots. Next up, let's talk about soil preparation. both really like well-amended, loamy, good draining soil, you know, doesn't everything. So I prefer to mix in some compost, not too much fertilizer, because you don't want all of the focus to be on growing green leafy growth. You want it to eventually bulb up, and that's going to need phosphorus and potassium down the line. But basically, to plant these guys, here's what you do. I like to grab the pointy end of the garlic with 2 fingers, and you're going to push it into the ground up to the second knuckle. There are a whole bunch of different opinions on how deep to plant garlic, but that's my middle ground in between. So 2 knuckles deep when you're holding the tip of the garlic. With shallots, you actually want to bury them so that this papery sheath is actually standing above soil ground. So you're going to bury them right to soil level with this guy sticking out. Likewise, you can put mulch over garlic after you've planted, but don't mulch over shallots because they have more of a tendency to rot than garlic does. Let's talk about plant spacing. If you are using hexagonal planting or offset rows, you can plant your garlic on 4-inch centers. If you're using square foot gardening method, you can plant them 6 inches apart. Shallots like a little bit more room because they end up multiplying into a cluster of 5 to 12 different bulbs of shallots. So they need a little bit more room. So I usually plant those 6 inches apart. On 6-inch centers using hexagonal planting, or using square foot gardening, I still do 6 inches apart. And they're going to grow up to be, they'll have enough room to mature. Once you get about 2 months in, then you're going to want to fertilize. You apply some fertilizer mixed with some compost around each plant, and then another month later, repeat that. And that should get you through the season. When it comes time to harvest, garlic and shallots behave differently once again. With garlic, the lower leaves will start to turn brown and wither. Start cutting back water when you start to see that happen. Eventually, you want to get to the point where you only have 5 or 6 leaves that are still green, and then cut off water for a week before you harvest to let the papery sheath dry down and be less likely to bruise when you harvest. Then you can dig up your garlic. Don't pull because sometimes the bulb stays in the ground. Lift them up with a digging fork or a hand spade and let them dry out of direct sunlight on a newspaper or a screen. Shake off the dirt off the roots, but don't trim them yet. After about 4 weeks in a dark, cool location, for me that's my garage, then you can trim off the roots and tops if you just want to store your garlic like this. If you have a soft neck variety and you want to braid the garlic, leave the stems, but clean off some of the papery sheath. Just, you know, pull off some of the loose stuff, and that will reveal a whiter finish on the bottom, underneath. Okay, so that's garlic. Now for shallots, shallots are going to do a totally different thing. The tips will start dying back when they're ready, and they take a little bit longer than garlic most of the time, by the way. My trick for knowing whether shallots are ready to harvest is to grab the greens and just tug, because their roots will start to dissolve when they're ready to harvest, and they'll come right out of the ground when you tug on them if they're ready. If they're not ready, if they still kind of holding on to the ground, just leave them a little while longer, another couple of weeks, and check again. Once they're ready, you can do the same thing as with garlic, put them in a dark location on newspaper or screen material, and let the tops die back completely and let the roots shrivel up. And then you can trim both ends of those off and bring them in for storage. So those are the basics for planting garlic and shallots in your fall garden, or spring if you live where it gets really frosty. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification button so that you'll find out when our next video comes online. And consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to support all the free stuff that we do here at Gardenerd. Don't forget to get your copy of Gardening for Geeks, which has information about how to grow garlic and shallots in there and so much more. And of course, pre-order your copy of Grow Your Own Mini Fruit Garden, which is coming out March 2021, but pre-orders help me a lot. So please, if you love these videos, support me a little bit that way, and that will be amazing. So happy gardening, and get out there and grow some stuff.